Sometime last year, I watched C3 Sabretooth's video about the human and Forerunner connection. He laid it out, quite beautifully, that humans and Forerunners were the same. Which, I got to admit, I'm pretty sure this went way over my head when I played Halo 3. So many years ago. My favorite character, Sergeant Johnson, died. And all I could think about at that moment was destroying Guilty Spark. So any reveals that took place after Johnson fell to the ground was basically just white noise for me. Which is why, despite playing Halo from 2001 to today, somehow I missed this key detail until 2023. And yet, for some reason, some people still don't believe C3 Sabretooth, and even got really mad at him for the whole video. As I experienced with talking to many of these people, I still don't understand why some people take the lore this seriously as they do, but I'd like to give my 2 cents on the topic, since whenever I bring it up, I either get people who are interested and curious, or hostile and ready to try and take me down. It's stuff like that which oftentimes makes me interested in the topic. Is there evidence for humans and Forerunners being the same before the Halo 4 Retcon? Yes. It's hinted at a lot in Halo Combat Evolved.
Can't imagine how exciting this is to have a record of all of our lost.
He looks excited, doesn't he?
Yeah.
All of our lost time? What does that mean?
Human history, is it?
Oh. Fascinating. That's a clue.
The original ending to Halo 2 would have revealed the human in the Forerunner coffin. The prophets repeatedly mention it.
And this time, none of you will be left standing.
Your forefathers wisely set aside their compassion. I see now why they left you behind.
The grave mine alludes to you being a child of his enemy.
Child of my enemy, why have you come? I offer no forgiveness of other sins passed to his son.
The book Contact Harvest flat out says it.
The Forerunners, the minister whispered. Some were left behind.
Titan, the cancelled Halo MMO game, their concept art literally showed Forerunners looking exactly like humans, and there are many other examples of it throughout the games and books. Throughout Bungie's Halo games, they leave numerous clues to hint that humans and Forerunners were meant to be the same. So, why all of this confusion? Well, let's break this all down, starting with the novel Contact Harvest. Contact Harvest was originally meant to be the novel that explains why the Covenant went to war with humanity, and why no human is allowed to join the Covenant. In the book, The Fall of Reach, there's a part where the Covenant tells humanity that their religion tells them to kill us all, which made no sense to me when I first read it. Why would an entire religion tell their followers that you need to die, and only your race, of all the beings in the galaxy, for no reason, no explanation, and everyone is included into the Covenant except for you, no questions may be asked? It made no sense to me, storytelling-wise. But when Contact Harvest came along, everything made more sense. Mendicant Bias revealed that humans are Forerunners, and if humans are around, then the Great Journey failed, and some members of the Covenant might end up getting left behind. And this all takes place during the Age of Doubt for the Covenant, which means this reveal would basically destroy their entire theocratic system. The alien races would separate, and it could mean that some of the Covenant might not get to ascend to godhood, or that others might be left behind. So, the prophets decide to exterminate all of humanity and keep it a secret so that they can ascend to godhood, and make sure that they can be front and center of that ascension. And while some of the prophets hope that everyone will be taken up, if anyone is left behind, as long as the prophets make it, oh well for everyone else. Cool story. Cool motive. However, fans of 343's Halo have 3 arguments against this reveal. The first is that the prophets misunderstood Mendicant Bias. The second is that Mendicant Bias is a faulty machine who told them the wrong thing. And third, that Joe Staten is a rogue writer who added this detail into the story without anyone knowing it, and he's evil. All of these arguments are insane. First, they'll say that Mendicant Bias is rampant and faulty, and that he can't be trusted. But when I ask them if Mendicant Bias was incorrect when he openly tells the prophets that they've been living a lie with their Covenant religion, well, now Mendicant is correct. Also, when he provides information of the location of the rings, that's also him not being faulty. Basically, Mendicant is right about everything, except for the humans on Harvest being the Forerunners alive to reclaim their technology. It's one of those things where Mendicant is only right when they like it and wrong when they don't like it. But then they'll move the goalpost and claim that the prophets actually misunderstood him, which is a really weird argument because if the attempted genocide of humanity was all just a complete misunderstanding, well, that's just terrible writing. Either way, it legit makes no sense why Joe Staten would put that in the book to begin with. if it wasn't true. It's the writer's job to help the audience see what needs to be seen, and Joe was clear that he wanted this to be the big reveal, as it was kind of Bungie's last book, and written by the same guy who had control of the story since Combat Evolved. If Microsoft dumped Halo after Bungie had left, and that was the last bit of evidence that we got on the Forerunners and humans, and it was all a lie, then Joe would have been a terrible person for doing that, I guess. But Joe didn't do that by accident. He wanted to help solidify what Halo 3 revealed to us, why the Covenant went to war with humanity in the first place. That's when the fans of 343's Halo moved the goalpost again and claimed that Joe just went rogue and wrote the story against Bungie's will. Which makes zero sense. Because why didn't they just have the book pulled from the market if he basically went mental and published it without the approval of the entire company? Not to mention, there are interviews where Joe says that Frank O'Connor actually cross-referenced Contact Harvest and checked to make sure that it aligned with the Halo Bible. And Paul Russell said that Joe didn't have all of this uncontrollable power to do whatever he wanted. What Joe did, Bungie agreed on. Long story short, Contact Harvest was meant to be the reveal for why the Covenant won't let humanity into their group. Because if it was discovered that they were the left behind Forerunners, the entire Covenant religion would be destroyed. So the prophets must exterminate humanity to protect their right to godhood. Joe apparently finished Contact Harvest by July, several months before the book was published, and claimed that Frank helped him edit the book. Why wouldn't Frank have said anything about humans being referred to as Forerunners in the book if Frank is one of the main people responsible for humans no longer being Forerunners? I legit don't have an answer to that question. I've searched, but I couldn't find anything. Frank has stated that he's convinced that Bungie wanted them separate the entire time, but even Bungie staff are legit confused as to why there was a change at all. Unfortunately, there are all kinds of arguments against the human Forerunner connection. Some people will try to claim that Guilty Spark was actually faulty like Mendicant, which is why he mistakes Chief for the same Forerunner that fired the ring, and why he calls Master Chief a Forerunner.
But you already knew that. I mean, how couldn't you?
The problem with this argument is, for starters, it contradicts Contact Harvest, and it's totally normal to mistake someone who looks the same as someone else you knew from over 100,000 years ago. Here are some of the photos of the concept art from Forerunner armor in the cancelled game that had Forerunners in it. Now, if you saw this guy 100,000 years ago and mistook him for this guy now, that's not exactly weird. I often mistake people that I haven't seen in a couple of years, let alone 100,000 years. Remember that scene from Star Wars when C-3PO recognizes Anakin from when he was a little kid to when he was a teenager? All because Anakin said his name? Was he faulty and that wasn't Anakin? Of course not. But people need to justify the retcon that was made and will grasp at any kind of straws they can to try and justify it. On top of that, Guilty Spark makes the mistake, but when he starts going through the Pillar of Autumn's archives, he figures out what's going on, and automatically knows that Chief is not the same person from 100,000 years ago, which would contradict the argument of Spark being glitchy at the end of Halo 3 when he tells Chief that he is Forerunner. Some people will try to argue that he goes rampant at the end, and that's why he's crazy. Contact Harvest actually kind of helps you to understand how rampancy works. Instead of it being AI schizophrenia, AI basically just become envious of humanity and want to experience things such as how love feels. Oversimplified. If Guilty Spark went rampant, he wouldn't be confused on what a Forerunner is, he'd just want to be more like a human. It makes sense that he went rampant there, but that doesn't mean he can't distinguish between a human and a fish. If Guilty Spark and the other AI are malfunctioning and messing up on humans and Forerunners, why is that the only thing they get wrong? They're not wrong about the purpose of the rings, or their locations, or any other history related to Forerunners. They're buggy and rampant, and mistake the Chief for the Forerunner that originally fired the ring, but why don't they mistake any other alien races for the Forerunners if they're buggy?
Because humans are reclaimers of the mantle, and so they have something inside of them that makes it easy for them to know.
So, AI are buggy. How do we know they didn't get it wrong?
Because 343 said so.
But Bungie made the AI say that humans were Forerunners.
That's because the AI are buggy.
So we can't trust the AI in general, even when it comes to humans being reclaimers?
No, we can trust AI on everything except for when they claim humans are Forerunners.
So the AI work at 100% capacity and have no signs or errors or issues except for that one topic.
That's correct.
Why?
Because 343 said so.
You are the child of my makers, inheritor of all they left behind.
You are Forerunner.
I guess we'll never know what that means.
I mean, he did kind of just say it to your face right there.
No, that's not what that means.
What does that mean then?
That means something else. I happen to be an archivist in the lore of Halo.
How did you get your credentials on that?
I'm loud and have a Reddit account where me and others go into an echo chamber to share similar views and exterminate anyone who disagrees with us.
It's just inconsistent logic when you see the amount of hoops that people have to jump through to try and justify this retcon. More so, arguing that there was no retcon and that this was what Bungie wanted the entire time. I mentioned before, if you look at the original concept art for the Halo MMO game Titan, you can see what the original look for the Forerunner was. It's funny because I actually had a person try and tell me that the reason the game got scrapped was because humans and Forerunners were separate, as if they couldn't just change the art. These arguments are quite mind-blowing. The next thing that most people will go to are the Halo 3 terminals and the Iris campaign or the Cradle of Life comic, which I'm almost convinced that no one actually bothered to look at these before, because nowhere in these does it show that humans and Forerunners aren't the same. We have a human watching alien ships build things, and they wonder who the Forerunners are, which contradicts what 343 established with the Librarian. And the Halo 3 terminals just show that Forerunners go throughout the galaxy, finding all kinds of species and logging them down, aside from all the other stuff with mendicant bias. And yet there's something unique and mind-blowing about the discovery of humans to the Forerunners, and how humans will reveal the secrets of the Forerunners. But that's about it. Let's take a side journey for a moment. So in the original Halo 2 ending, it was supposed to be revealed that humans and Forerunners were the same. Basically, 100% the same. Kind of like in a linear way, if that makes sense. Humans create all their Forerunner technology, then they fire the rings, and now humans are reclaiming their lost technology. But this was later changed, not necessarily retconned, since the reveal wasn't made yet, which is also funny because I've actually had people tell me that they got rid of the Halo 2 ending because humans and Forerunners weren't the same, and not because Microsoft wanted a Halo 3. For some people, this is less about lore and fiction, and more like their own worldview is on the line at this point. So, while sifting through several tweets and other messages from former Bungie staff, the thing that I've kind of concluded is this. In Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2, humans and Forerunners were supposed to be 100% the same, but this later got changed in Halo 3. So does that mean that humans and Forerunners are a completely separate species like we see in Halo 4? No, they're not. What the Halo 3 terminals actually show is this. Back then, the precursors collected a group of humans. So now there are two separate groups of humans. The ones that evolved naturally, and the ones that were hyper-evolved by the precursors taken from Earth and given advanced technology. Then the precursors left, the Flood came, the Forerunners fought them, and then they were going to activate the Halo Rings. When the Librarian, which isn't the name of the person, but is their title, and there are actually multiple Librarians, she finds humans on Earth and realizes that humans hold the mysteries of the Forerunners in their past. So technically, not all humans are Forerunners, but all Forerunners are humans. And the humans that came after the rings are fired are created from the DNA of Forerunners, meaning that Chief, Johnson, Miranda, and everyone else is a Forerunner. Which is also why Guilty Spark asked a regular soldier, like Marvin Mabuto, to fire the rings. Contact Harvest also confirms this when they claim that Truth can't bring himself to call humans Forerunners and instead only calls them Reclaimers. Funny story, Paul Russell literally asked one of the Halo 3 terminal writers whether they were the same or separate, and he just said, "Oh yeah, one of the writers said that the Halo 3 terminals show that humans and Forerunners are the same." What people will do is, they'll take old quotes from Paul Russell when he didn't know, and they'll ignore his comments when after he asked one of the Halo 3 terminal writers, in order to justify their view that Bungie always wanted them separate. It does blow my mind when people ignore certain information, so long as it confirms their own biases. No joke, whenever former Bungie staff come out and admit that humans and Forerunners were the same, people will mock and attack them, as if somehow the people who worked for Bungie know less than a bunch of fans who ignore basic facts. I once told someone how Marty O'Donnell said that they were the same, and that person told me that Marty just made music and didn't know anything about the lore, and that we should be listening to Paul Russell, who is the father of Halo, who openly admitted that they were separate. So, I'm going to take their advice and listen to the father of Halo, who claims that Forerunners are human. Another funny thing is, something that few people ever seem to talk about, is how the Forerunner trilogy actually contradicts the Halo 3 terminals, the Iris campaign, and everything else that goes over the human Forerunner connection during the Bungie era. And 343 addresses this issue by simply saying that anything old that gets contradicted by new material, just go with the new material and the old stuff is now obsolete. Which is funny because the Forerunner Saga books contradict the Halo 3 terminals, and so they fix that by arguing that mendicant bias is just faulty. I guess that's where that came from. Realistically, if these AI are faulty and accidentally confuse humans for Forerunners, don't you think it'd make far more sense for the AI to confuse the brutes for Forerunners, since they're almost the same height and have far more similar features than humans do? I guess it's a good thing that they're not as faulty as the fans of 343's Halo insist, or else this story would have been over way before Combat Evolved even took place. 343 really aren't the best sources of information to go with on Bungie's Halo lore. According to them, humans aren't Forerunners, but are Reclaimers, which makes the word reclaim seem kinda weird since they're apparently claiming instead of reclaiming. Not to mention, C3 Sabretooth mentioned this in his Forerunner video, and I didn't believe him and had to fact check it. Honestly, I fact checked most of his video, which is why I'm pretty certain he's right about nearly everything he's provided. But did you know that in Halo 4 Spartan Ops, the Covenant are looking for humans with the Reclaimer power? Which basically means that not all humans are Reclaimers.
Okay, got access to recording on a Hawkeye FF tag. Playing it now. I don't understand. Nothing's happening. Roland, translation. Elites were here, trying to find Reclaimers. Humans who can operate Forerunner technology.
Which makes zero sense for why all of humanity have to die when only some of them are Reclaimers. But I guess it makes the Halo TV show make more sense with that human Covenant woman. 343's Halo lore basically makes the TV show make more sense than the actual game. So yeah, according to Bungie, humans are not Claimers, they are Reclaimers. And a Reclaimer is basically a Forerunner reclaiming their technology. That's what the word reclaim is supposed to mean. Something that people often tell me is that Truth wanted to destroy all humans because they were Reclaimers to the Forerunner technology. There are numerous problems with that argument. The first being the fact that Truth wanted to call humans Reclaimers instead of Forerunners, as is mentioned in Contact Harvest. The other issue is the fact that all aliens who enter into the Covenant have gifts and abilities that the Prophets don't have. Brutes are physically stronger, the elites are superior in tactics, the engineers can literally do whatever they want with technology that even humanity can't do. And yet, humans are bad because the technology belongs to them? The Prophets could have literally just said they aren't Reclaimers and that they have special gifts like the other members of the Covenant. However, that wasn't what happened. The real threat doesn't come to Truth because he wants the technology, he wants to ascend to godhood. And the only way to do that is by keeping the Covenant together. If it's discovered that humans are the left behind Forerunners, then that endangers what Truth wants the most. The guy literally killed another prophet he felt slowed down the great journey in the slightest bit. Truth is not afraid of humanity's access to Forerunner technology. He's worried that if the Forerunners did not all ascend to godhood, it could threaten his rise to ultimate power. That's why humans being only Reclaimers and not Forerunners makes no sense story-wise. Lastly, one thing I often encounter with people is that they'll claim that I'm wrong because Halo 4 showed people what a Forerunner is. The issue with that is that people will use later information, created by the people who retcon the story, to justify their claims. As if somehow a retcon that came after Bungie had left is the same as if Bungie had made it themselves. With that, anything can later be proven false in an established story.
You see, Darth Vader was actually wrong about being Luke's father, and he had gone a little crazy.
Why?
Age and all of those scars and damage to his body, it made him a little wonky in the head. Didn't you see that big scar on his scalp? Evidence.
So everything Vader says is inaccurate?
That's right.
So the Force isn't real?
No, that's real. Obi-Wan confirmed it.
What if he told Luke that he fought in the Clone Wars?
No, that was true. Obi-Wan confirmed it too.
So what exactly did Vader get wrong?
He's not Luke's father.
That's the only thing he's mistaken on?
That's right. It's because women can get pregnant with anyone, and Padme cheated on Anakin.
kind of ruins Padme's character, but how are Luke and Leia Force sensitive then?
Well, Disney said anyone can master the Force, and Luke was also never the greatest Jedi to begin with.
But that's just because Disney said so.
No, Lucas had technically established that. Plus, Lucas doesn't know what he wants.
Wait, but Obi-Wan agreed that Vader was Luke's father.
He pulled a double lie. The first was that he was lying about Luke's father, but then lied again, and now we know that Obi-Wan can't be trusted.
So, he can't be trusted about the Force and about Vader being a Jedi in the Clone Wars?
No, we can trust that.
What can we trust at this point if nothing is sacred?
Money?
I'm not particularly fond of retcons. Some can be done well and others not so much. The biggest issue with this retcon is that it completely wrecks the original games from Bungie, since the entire genocide of the human race was all just an accident. On top of that, retcons are basically an author's way of cheating the fans of any elements that they themselves deem to be unpopular. This hurts suspension of disbelief and it ends up putting the fans at war with each other. I've experienced this myself with the 343 fanboys jumping on me for simply asking questions, at the time when I legit didn't know anything about this stuff, last year. Now that I feel as though I've bashed 343 enough, please don't use this video to hate 343 for the sake of hating 343. I really don't like when people argue that 100% of what 343 did was all bad 100% of the time. There are lots of things that 343 has given us that I genuinely think are really cool. My reasons are based on a lot of things. I played Combat Evolved when it first came out, all the way to Halo Reach. That was my era of Halo. And I got to see how much of a cultural phenomenon Halo was to literally the entire world. And I don't like 343 because they couldn't keep that momentum going and now Halo is a shadow of its former glory. They even mocked fans for the changes they made. They also inserted all kinds of political stuff into their games and franchise. And they gave us Master Cheeks. And so much more. Before I go, if you disagree with what I've shared, there are a few things I ask you to do. Number one, don't just slam your head on the keyboard and tell me how wrong I am.
Gosh, I hate your face. I don't even know what you look like, but it haunts me in my sleep.
That's not my face.
Okay, well, I think that's your face, so that's good enough for me.
Share with me information and provide sources. I change my mind if enough information is properly provided to me, and if I see more facts supporting one side more than the other. Secondly, don't get mad at me and accuse me of taking things out of context. Get mad at Marty, Paul, Joe, Jamie, David, and literally everyone else at Bungie who provided information that has apparently confused me into believing that 343 retconned the Forerunners. Now, do I believe that Bungie wanted the Forerunners to be humans? Yes. Are Forerunners humans now? Obviously not. Bungie gave Halo over to Microsoft, and Forerunners were retconned. The problem that I have is that people ignore the retcon and act like there never was a retcon from 343. If you legit want more information on that, just go watch the intro to C3 Sabretooth's video. He explains everything far more stylishly than I do. People argue that Bungie didn't know what they were doing, but 343 did know what they were doing. 343 couldn't even figure out what they were doing with the look of the Covenant species, they couldn't figure out what they were doing with Cortana, and they literally didn't know what they were doing with their entire story as a whole. It legit blows my mind how far some people will go to defend mistakes made by 343. I still don't even know what that new alien race is from Halo Infinite. Other than the fact that they're apparently worse than the Flood, it's just as bad as Marvel, where we went from Loki destroying a city, Ultron destroying a planet, Thanos destroying half of all life in the galaxy, Thanos 2.0 going to destroy the entire galaxy and remake it how he wants, and now Marvel is like, let's go bigger than that! Stakes can only go so high, and if you're now creating something that basically makes the rings obsolete, Halo is going to end up becoming obsolete in the end itself. Well, I hope this video was enlightening for all of you. Feel free to talk in the comments section, politely. And honestly, if you love the retcons 343 added to the Halo universe with the Forerunners, feel free to like them. You're allowed to like what you like. If you don't like them, you're allowed to not like them too. My only thing is, when this conversation comes up, be open about it and work on having a civil conversation with people, no matter what side they're arguing from. I say that with experience from people who dogpiled me when I had no idea what was going on. We're all Halo fans at the end of the day. Don't be mean to Bungie, don't be mean to 343, don't be mean to the fans, and just enjoy the game. Thanks for watching.